Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Delford and Wrekin Planning Committee. These meetings are held in public so that people can see how we determine applications. And they will be recorded. They can be photographed and recorded, and you'll be aware of that. And can I ask everybody to turn off their mobile phones, please? Having said that, I'll turn my own off.
Always check.
Item 1 on the agenda is apologies for absence.
Councillor Ian Fletcher, and he will be substituted by Councillor Veronica Fletcher.
Yeah. Councillor Ian Fletcher's had an operation which precluded from coming tonight. Nobody else? Right. Okay. Any declarations of interest on the agenda? Item 3, minutes of the previous meeting. Are they true and correct record? All agreed? Yeah. Yep. I know Veronica wasn't at the meeting. Right. Any deferred withdrawn applications? Item 4.
There are none, Chair.
Item 5. Any site visits planned?
No, Chair.
Right. Thank you. Now, item 6 is the plan application for determination. Now, I intend to do these in the reverse order that on the agenda. 6.1 is the number 1, and they're both there. But 6.2 is the actual estate, and I intend to do that first.
Chair, what's that? We have 2 members down, and if they arrive late, they can't.
They arrive late, they can't talk.
Yeah, is it worth giving them a little time to come?
Gemma said she was
allowing for the weather.
I know they're coming home for the weather, but we are in a public meeting. But you'll move me, wait 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Yes, please.
Yes, please.
And I was by the nod there, I think that's consensus.
Yeah.
Okay.
you're not for minutes yet.
we'll resume the meeting. Thanks for your patience on that. The traffic is horrendous, and we're still one down, but she comes in, she can't talk on the item we're talking on. Okay, so we're on page 33 of the agenda then, which is item 6B, and this application called in by Edgmond Parish Council. Do you want to introduce it?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So this is a full planning application for the erection of 24 entry-level affordable homes with associated access, landscaping and drainage works.
Excuse me, Chairman, would you mind?
So it's a full planning application for 24 entry-level affordable homes with access, landscaping and drainage. Since publishing the committee report, officers understand from the site visit that we did today that the applicant has agreed a lease with an operator of the pub from the 1st of April 2023 with occupation to take effect after. And works are visibly underway on that public house. However, the planning application should continue to be decided on its own merits. It's the officer recommendation that the application be granted full planning permission.
Thank you, Robin. Stephen Burrell. Councillor Stephen Burrell. I didn't see you there, got the camera in the way.
No, that's all right. I'm so slim, you see, is what it is.
3 minutes, Stephen.
Thank you, Charlie. To begin, members, allow me to draw your attention to paragraphs 8.2.3 and 8.2.4 of the committee report, where clear and unambiguous statements describe why this application is not compliant with policies HO10 and HO11 of the Council's local development plan, and on those terms should therefore be rejected by committee this evening. In an attempt to justify the recommendation for approving this proposal, the officer reaches deep into the National Planning Policy Framework, specifically paragraph 72, which states that local planning authorities should support the development of entry-level exception sites suitable for first-time buyers unless the need for such homes is already being met within the authority's area. Here's where we hit our first problem, members. The council categorically cannot describe what the local need for affordable housing in the village of Edgmond is. No affordable housing needs assessment has been conducted in the parish since the last one expired some years ago. And the absence of such an assessment, the case for this proposal collapses. Furthermore, the committee report fails to identify the need for affordable development of this scale, and also fails to take into account the large number of affordable homes constructed in the rural area during the last 12 years. Surely the first step in addressing a need for affordable housing in the parish should be to identify what presently exists within the parish and within its close locality. Additionally, paragraph 72 of the NPPF also states that affordable exception developments should not compromise the protection given to areas or assets of particular importance. And here we come to the clear objection raised against this application by the Council's Heritage Officer. The officer has described the harm caused by this application on the conservation zone and heritage concerns as substantial or less than substantial, which clearly compromises the standards set by paragraph 72. Setting aside the applicant's cynical subdivision of the line site in order to meet the 1 hectare limit for this proposal, we're nonetheless left with the fact that this application is not supported by the Council's own planning policy. Further, due to the Council's failure to produce an up-to-date affordable needs housing assessment, the applicant cannot demonstrate a local need for an affordable development of this size or scale. To sum up then, we have a proposal that fails to comply with local or national planning policy, which seeks to meet an unidentified need and causes harm to the Edgmond conservation zone and other heritage concerns. What further evidence do members need to reject the officer's recommendation and refuse consent for this development? Thank you, members.
Thank you, Stephen. Councillor Alan Wilson, please.
Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Alan Wilson, Chair to Edgmond Parish Council. The evidence of affordable housing has already been explained by my colleague, and it's getting conflated with the current consensus of 2021, where the number of younger people in the parish has actually been confused with those that are attending Harper Adams University. In short, conflating those figures, when in fact the actual need was found in the last survey to have been 11 affordable houses across the whole of the area. The newly introduced daytime 103 bus service that travels from Newport to Wellington has been secured currently for a 2-year period. It isn't guaranteed in that location. It's a round-robin service that takes 1 hour and 20 minutes to complete its journey, having travelled round all the local villages to get to Wellington. The grounds for employment to be secured off the planning proposal was, if it was to be approved, are purely transitory, and the parties behind the scheme will succeed in developing 24 properties but no actual local jobs for the people who eventually move into them. The current construction profile states it will meet building regs. However, there is no plans currently in place for photovoltaic on the properties, yet details are supplied for the implementation of EV chargers on each of the properties to be built. These are affordable homes. To offset energy charges, PV should be considered as a necessity. We support and reiterate the concerns of the village setting in relation to the Priory, which the Conservation Officer and English Heritage have noted. The design and density of the properties proposed are not in keeping with the local streetscape and effectively look like a cut and paste from an urban environment placed into a rural setting. The properties would identify themselves as a development out of keeping, and the construction by using preformed off-site materials brought to site demonstrate that these are urban housing units being shipped into a rural landscape. Change to the design needs to be done. There's also concern about local flash floods that have been exacerbated by runoff from Cheney Hill, which has blocked the drainage system on the 5062. The site is parallel to Cheney Hill, and we consider that the attenuation tank system will silt up in due term over time. Should the Plans Board consider approving the site for development, Parish Council would engage in supporting the condition of a local lettings policy being adopted for those nominated for residents to be subject to local families that would like to have their children settled within the parish, then nominations from adjacent parishes, Newport, and then the local authority. The proposal for Section 106 money should be as outlined in the document, however 50% being paid in advance on commencement of the proposal of the development taking place. I have one other paragraph to deliver, Chair, if you mind.
Yeah, carry on.
Thank you very much. The proposed proportion of the rental and shared ownership be amended to a sliding scale format if possible, and this to be subject to an in perpetuity clause for those rental properties to prevent the loss of these affordable homes, should they be approved, being reverted to the commercial sector and lost to affordable housing need. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Alan. Mr. Adam White, please.
Chair, I was going to speak on the second application. I think you changed the running order. Sorry, I was going to speak on the first one, but you've changed the running order.
Oh. You're only going to speak on that one, are you? Okay. My mistake. It's my speaking order is not as it normally is. Which is something the Democrats ought to... Yeah.
Is that Adam White who needs to speak? Adam White.
So Adam White, please. No.
Thank you, Chair. Just for clarification, my name's Mike Nolan.
Ah, your name's Mike Nolan?
Yes.
Not on my paper, it's not.
Okay, apologies. Good evening. My name is Mike Nolan and I'm the Head of Development at Green Square Accord Housing Association. We are a not-for-profit organisation delivering affordable housing solutions to those in need. We believe passionately in our mission to build better lives and currently provide affordable housing solutions to 54,000 people across the country. The local plan identifies that housing affordability remains a challenge locally and across the borough. The cost of a typical house is nearly 7 times the mean income in the region, rising to 9 times the mean income in parts of the rural area and Newport. The inclusion of the affordable tenure of right to shared ownership within the development for some of the dwellings will provide an affordable pathway to home ownership to citizens of the borough that would otherwise be locked out of the home ownership market. This can contribute to the longer term sustainability of the community. We are currently working with the council across the borough to deliver new homes alongside this proposal to support the council achieve its aims to meet local housing needs and aspirations, make sure new developments deliver a range of housing types and tenures that meet the needs of household groups, ensure an appropriate proportion of new dwellings are affordable, and improve the quality of new and existing housing. The first application for the site was submitted in November 2021, and over the past 14 months we have worked closely with our development partner and the planning officer and other members across the council to fine-tune a select development of 24 high-quality, low-energy, affordable homes to complement the existing homes in the community. We understand that change can be unsettling for existing communities, but we are hoping to provide additional affordable housing to the community, which is firmly aimed at first-time renters and shared ownership buyers with links to the existing community. Many of the objections presume that the proposals do not align with the neighbourhood plan, which we contest, and we would follow the following brief examples of compliance with the plan. Page 11 of the neighbourhood plan states that Edgmond wishes to support a prosperous rural economy, deliver affordable housing and support community vitality. All key elements of the proposal before you. Page 17 of the plan states that the consultation responses stress the need for new housing to be in keeping with the character of the village and sympathetic to existing design and materials. Having considered the responses from the local community, we have worked hard with the planning officer to amend the design of the initial proposal, creating a scheme which reflects the character of local housing with a reduction in density and introduction of village features wherever possible, such as low-level garden railing, chimneys, cottage-style windows and stone detailing. At Green Square, we are committed to the long-term stewardship of the communities that we deliver. We believe that we have fully understood and responded to the community requirements as detailed in the neighbourhood plan. One final sentence. The planning officer has recommended that this 100% affordable housing scheme be granted full planning permission, and we hope that the committee will support the huge benefits to both Edgmond and the wider community.
Very much.
Thank you, Michael. You should verse on my order sheet.
Thank you.
But thanks for that. Robin, it's back to you.
Thank you, Chair. So, the proposal is for 24 2 and 3 bedroom entry-level affordable homes. So, as we've heard tonight, entry-level affordable homes was introduced in the National Planning Policy Framework in the summer of 2018. So, the local plan and the neighbourhood plan predate the revision of the framework. In terms of the definition, entry-level exception sites are defined in the framework as sites that provide entry-level exception homes suitable for first-time buyers or equivalent for those looking to rent. So in this case, we've got 6 homes for shared ownership and 18 homes for affordable rent, which would be secured via a Section 106 agreement in perpetuity and meet a borough-wide need. We would secure the terms of that through the Section 106 in terms of selection of occupiers of the dwellings based on a hierarchy. The framework is a material consideration in the decision-making process. So the compliance with a more recent national planning policy framework is a material consideration which carries significant weight and outweighs the conflicts with the neighbourhood plan and the local plan that set out the parameters for new housing in terms of SP3, HO10 in relation to infill, and HO11 in relation to small-scale rural exception sites, which are different to entry-level exception sites. So the application is within the rural area, one of the 5 named settlements within the local plan, and as identified within the committee report, conflicts with the development plan, which is silent on entry-level homes because it predates that introduction within the framework. So paragraph 72 of the framework is of relevance. It specifically states that local planning authorities should support the development of entry-level exception sites unless the need for such homes is already being met within the authority's area, and provided the proposals comply with local design policy and standards. Now that is covered in the committee report, and in terms of the need for entry-level exception sites, obviously it's quite a new area within the framework, and within our current monitoring we don't have a specific figure for entry-level exception sites, but looking at appeals in relation to entry-level exception sites, it doesn't necessarily, you don't necessarily have to demonstrate that need, and that approach has been established. The proposals have been subject to amendments in terms of the redesign during the determination process, and we're now satisfied that the revised designs comply with local design policies within the neighbourhood plan and the local plan, and those design changes are listed within the committee report. The development would have a negative impact on the setting of the Grade 2 listed priory, which is located to the south of the site beyond the road. There's no harm to the conservation area, which is located to about 100 metres to the southwest. So the less than substantial harm identified to the Grade 2 listed building needs to be weighed against the public benefits of the scheme in the decision-making process. In terms of access, that's proposed via Chetwynd Road. That will require the reconfiguration of the existing public car park and access, which obviously is subject to a separate planning application that we're hearing tonight as well. But the works to the public car park would be secured via a Section 106 agreement as well. The proposal is accompanied by an off-site highway mitigation scheme to incorporate a dropped curb tactile pedestrian crossing, which is located further north beyond number 8 Chetwynd Road, and a vehicle activated sign will be placed on site, because the visibility to the north is slightly substandard. It's a couple of metres short of what we typically require for new developments, but we do have to consider the existing site context as well in terms of the existing access, which is currently very poor at present. So there's no objection from the local highway authority, and the proposals have been subject to an independent road safety audit which the applicant has undertaken. In terms of drainage, the site has been subject to borehole monitoring to record groundwater levels over the winter and even earlier. So that's to demonstrate the feasibility of the infiltration or the attenuation tank, which is located in the sort of northeastern part of the site. And we're satisfied that sufficient data sets have been collected to conclude that the soil conditions at this depth are feasible for that attenuation tank. In terms of the Section 106 that was mentioned, so we've got the education contributions, the open space contributions, and the 24 affordable homes that would be secured in the Section 106. It's envisaged that the education and the off-site open space contributions are secured pre-commencement, and then we've also got the off-site highway works that would be secured in the Section 106 as well. So in the planning balance, officers conclude that the public benefits of the scheme, so those are listed at 8.13.2. They outweigh the harm to the heritage asset, and significant weight should be afforded to paragraph 72 of the framework, and officers therefore recommend that this application is approved.
Thank you, Robin. It's open for debate. Peter.
Just a couple of questions, really.
If there's no evidence of identified need, are we building for the sake of it?
Is the first question. And also, is the Red Lion dependent on this going forward?
Red Lion.
The lion.
The lion, yeah.
Yeah. So I suppose what I was saying in terms of the affordable housing is the target that we have in our local plan isn't a maximum, and yeah, we would obviously still encourage affordable housing schemes in suitable locations when we consider entry level exception sites specifically. In terms of the Lion Inn, no, they're not linked at all. So yeah, it's not enabling development to reopen the Lion Inn.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Jim?
82.9. All right. Yeah. The figures there, do they does the Harper Adams student count in the full total with the residents? Those that are at the college.
Yeah, most likely. Yeah.
Because that contradicts because they aren't there half the time.
The census, when it's undertaken, when you complete the details on the census form, it's the position of that person at the time that they are completing that census form. So if they are resident at university at that time, then it would count towards those figures. Even if they've gone home for the weekend, they would have to, at the time that is completed, they would have to fill it in for their home address. So it's very difficult to kind of say for sure.
As I say, that does throw it. The other question, 83.9, halfway down, M4, 3 wheelchair users. The way I've read that, I personally feel it's a discrimination against disabled. I'm disabled, yes, it's a stick, but how long before I end up in a wheelchair? And how many more like that?
So, yeah, this is a bit of this application is unfortunate timing really in terms of how we can assess it against the Homes for All SPD, which came in January 2022. This application was submitted in December 2021. So we can't, as it says in the document, really we can't apply this for that scheme. We have encouraged them to provide M42 and M43 homes. But in this instance, they haven't, and they don't require by policy. But that's only because it came in prior to that adoption.
Well, I don't see as it does because there's still discrimination, and disabled discrimination is way back before 21. So again, it's one of those chicken and egg.
Yeah, it's I suppose it's different legislation. We have to consider the planning application today against the legislation that's available, the development plan, the national any material considerations like the national planning policy framework, and that's what we're doing. I suppose we have introduced stricter, I suppose, requirements in that Homes for All SPD, which hopefully we'll see moving forward in developments meet all those thresholds, but yeah, in this case it doesn't.
Well, I consider that the new application that brought in was to add an advance on the information for disabled that was already legislation for access, as it applies with all properties. Perhaps you can, Mark, you can...
I mean, in terms of, like, I think Robin's kind of been clear, in terms of the legislation at the time, we've kind of taken all relevant planning legislation into account. Yes, there is other legislation as you kind of inferred, but I think where the planning policy and legislation is quite clear, we need to kind of take that into account when in the decision making. And yes, the new legislation has come in, which we would absolutely take account of in terms of future applications, but in terms of the timing of this particular one, as it's kind of before us now, we are more restricted in terms of how we can consider the application.
I see it as what's just come in is a belt and braces on what they already produced for disabled. That's my main concern. There's too many people disabled, even not noticeable, that's having issues, and I think this is where it's being struck out. It's glossing over, or is it saying if you're in a wheelchair you're not going to be looked at for a property?
And that's where the legislation has kind of changed and kind of evolved to kind of accommodate that.
As I say, I still see it as what was done previously.
Yeah, Val will just...
No, just in terms of addressing these points, so in terms of this legislation, which are dealt with separately as well, though through building control, building legislation, which also deals with issues on disabled access and the functionality within spaces, and that will be taken care of, and it's gone on for some time through separate legislation, and that will happen outside of that planning process. What's happened with the SPD is it's brought in additional needs, so the functionalities of the spaces are more tailored for specific bodies, effectively, for tailoring for that end user. The policy had a transition statement at the point of its adoption that said how this would be applied, and we have to consider that carefully, because that, at the point of adoption, it then also said any applications that were already in place could not be considered against that policy, so we can't apply it because that's the adopted transition statement when this council adopted it. So we have to park that, I'm afraid. And whilst we've encouraged it, we can't then force that. So we would not have any grounds in terms of for a refusal reason based on that specific element. So, but there are other things that go on behind the scenes outside of planning that are dealt with through different bits of legislation. So as they're building out, they would need to show, any developer would need to show compliance with the building legislation.
Okay, Jim?
Yep.
Gemma and then Veronica.
Thanks, Chair. So obviously with regards to the application itself, it's great to see that we're going to have affordable rent, because I think it's really important in the times that we're living at the moment with regards to families. There's a couple of points that I just want to raise with regards to actual Edgmond itself and things that have been raised. So with regards to no employment opportunities in Edgmond, so from the mitigation from that, with the actual refurbishment of the Lion Inn, which is an asset of community value, that's going to bring some small employment, so that's good on that point. There is obviously the issue around doctors that are overprescribed, which is we've got a real issue around local amenities, of whether we can look at trying to mitigate something around there. We've looked at drainage, but obviously there's notes been made about insufficient green space to be added to the village character. So I think from that perspective, it's really important in Edgmond. So when we go back to the financial contributions, it obviously says that we've put in off-site open space contributions. So whether we can do some mitigation between open space, play, recreation facilities, but also some green space for residents to add to the character of Edgmond. Obviously, I welcome the fact that obviously there's a lot of work being happening with regards to reducing the amount of properties on the area and backwards and forwards, but I think the round of green space and obviously loss of trees and wildlife, so if we can put something in there, because obviously I think when we do build, we are very much of taking away trees, wildlife to local areas across the board, and it's not just this application. That we can look at for mitigation to putting in with regards to our contributions that we've got. And I think that's it. Sorry.
Okay. No worries, it's quite a lot.
Could I say Veronica first?
Okay,
I've
yeah.
got a few. Excuse me, Chairman. I've got a few points as well, and I'd like to go back to what my colleague said about the disabled access to these homes. Somebody moves in, has an accident, and is confined to a wheelchair, or is taken ill and is confined to a wheelchair. Does that mean they'll lose their home, first of all? I've also got grave concerns about the fact that we have disregarded the policies of 8.3 and 8.4, and that they've been weighed by the MPF and the other planning formula that we have. I also have concerns about the highways, because we have 24 homes, there's no bus service, so everybody will be riding on cars. They will have to walk through the if they want to go shopping, to take children to school, they will have to walk through the car park of the pub to access those facilities, with all the cars that might be coming in and out of the pub. And we say that there is no impact on the area, but you will have refuge vehicles, so there will be at least 100 movements a day for the 24 homes, notwithstanding the 10 spaces for visitors. You'll have vehicles coming in for deliveries, you'll have highways possibly coming in for different things, you'll have refuge lorries coming in, emergency vehicles. I notice in the conditions you're looking at parking, loading, unloading and turning. And I'm asking, is the site big enough to be able to have those large vehicles turn safely to come in and out of the vehicle? Because this site is landlocked and it is dependent on the car park entrance to bring every vehicle in through that area and then up to the houses. The other thing I'm concerned about is the conditions for the affordable homes. 24 non-entry affordable dwellings, 6 are shared ownership dwellings and 18 affordable rent dwellings. And in section 814, 74 and 81 and 813, it says these would be in perpetuity. But when you've gone to the recommendation for the conditions, that is missing on the condition. Why is that, please? And it should be there. Because it's throughout. You've made much of it throughout the whole document, and then it's not in the condition.
Thank you,
So
Veronica.
thank you very much.
Do you want to answer the question, Lloyd and Bob?
Yes, okay. So yeah, in terms of the doctor's point, that is a matter for the CCG and not one that in terms of planning we get involved with at this stage. In terms of the open space and green space, obviously it is, the site itself is private land at the moment. It's not open space apart from the pub garden, which is again private land, but people can use. We have worked with the applicant to try and set the properties back from that internal road and minimise the amount of development at the eastern end, where you've still got that sort of visual of the wider rural area. And again, in terms of the planning conditions, we don't want a specific hard boundary on that eastern side of the site to try and retain that openness. The contributions for the playing fields and the recreation facilities would be spent in existing areas of open space and playing fields within Edgmond itself, and that would be secured by Section 106. In terms of highways, yeah, as I said, the visibility to the south is acceptable. The visibility to the north is slightly short, but they are proposing this off-site mitigation in terms of the dropped curbs for pedestrians further up, and this vehicle activated sign, which should, it's 30 miles an hour on the Checkman Road, so it should slow it down, or at least let vehicles know what speed they're doing to encourage vehicles to slow down. And the local highway authority have no objection to the scheme. In terms of pedestrian movement, you'll see on the plan they have introduced a pavement either side of the road, and they are widening the pavement to the front of the public house and to the front of the new proposed car park. So it is, again, is a betterment, and hopefully they won't have that conflict with the car park for the public house, because they can cross further up and then stay in the right side of the road, to minimise that. Bus service, again, yeah, granted it at the moment it is not a regular service, but as we heard from the from I think Councillor Burrell, a bus service is improving for the next 2 years. And the condition and the turning head as well, we're satisfied that there's sufficient room for manoeuvring, because you've got the turning head to the south east of the site, and then you've got an area to the sort of south of that attenuation tank wildflower planting where vehicles can manoeuvre, and then there's visitor parking as well dotted throughout the site to cater for visitors of this development. The affordable housing would be secured via a Section 106. It's not the affordable housing would be secured by a Section 106. It wouldn't be secured by it's not appropriate to secure it by a condition. No. It would be via the Section 106, which is a legal agreement that they.
What I'm saying about that on affordable housing is the fact that you've made much of the fact in all those numbers I've mentioned, you 814, 74, 813. That the number of dwellings, rent dwellings, it says after that in perpetuity, and it's not put down. Why is that not put in place?
It will be secured in perpetuity. So under 8.13.1, it says 24 entry-level affordable homes in perpetuity, and that would be secured in the Section 106 agreement.
So it won't be in the conditions?
No. But it's Section 106 is a legal agreement.
I've got a couple more questions.
Okay.
Sorry about this.
It's okay.
But the number of school places, I mean, you're giving a lot of money to the schools, for the schools, some of which obviously are not in the village, they're outside for the secondary schools, but are the school places there for the number of children that would be on the site?
Yeah, education were consulted as part of this planning application and think they can spend that money that's been secured.
And the safe route to school, because it's a very narrow road to go down, with all the cars coming in out of the pub car park, as well as in the area, with all the traffic that will be there generated during the day, for people to take their children to school safely.
Yeah, I mean, in the confines of the site that we have to work with, we do and some of the off-site mitigation, we do think the development is mitigating for what it's proposing in terms of the introduction of the pavements either side. Obviously, the planning application can't mitigate for, unfortunately, all of the issues within Edgmond, because there are areas where we lose pavement or we haven't got formal pedestrian crossings, but we do think it's sufficient to mitigate for the development that it's providing.
And could you just then tell me what has tipped the balance for you to ask us to approve this planning application against the two things, at least two things, three things because of the heritage as well, three things that are not compliant? So what has tipped the balance?
Yeah, the public benefits are the delivery of the 24 affordable homes, the education contributions, the open space contributions, and the betterment in terms of the highways, in terms of the access that's being provided.
And would you take into account then what was being asked by the chairman of the parish council that if we agree this, that it would go to local people.
Yeah, so there would be a what was it called? More of a local lettings agreement and there will be hierarchy within a section 106 to secure those affordable housing for those people, depending on where they fit into the hierarchy.
Thank you very much for answering my question.
Nigel.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I mean, sort of an affordable housing development in the middle of a rural village sounds really good to begin with. I mean, my concerns are greenfield site, good quality, loss of good quality agricultural land, as we heard, against policy HO10 and HO11. I mean, the thing is that we don't even know if there is any demand for this type of accommodation, because as has been pointed out, the census figures include the transient student population, and it does actually mention the census data from 2011, which surely we should be using the 2021 data, because that's the most recent. So a bit concerned about that, really. I mean, the other thing is that when you think about the people who are going to be there, people who want affordable homes or want shared ownership, they're going to be more reliant upon public transport, of which we've heard there is very little, if any, and there aren't many facilities within the village itself other than a pub and a small shop. So really, it's a great development. It's just in the wrong location, really, and it would be far more suited to other areas which do actually have infrastructure that the residents could actually use. A bit concerned about the drainage data. I mean, that's not complete, and okay then, so it would be complete if April, I think it's the end of April, when it should be complete. Now then, what happens if we get some inclement weather in the next 4 weeks, and we do have some flooding? I mean, who would have thought that we'd be arriving in snow tonight? We wouldn't. So the thing is that I don't think this application is actually ready to come before us, because some of the data is either missing or is old and is invalid. The thing is that interesting point on the refuse vehicles, and so it is going to be difficult turning in and out, and as we know, and certainly on the site visit, it was fairly obvious that any traffic that turning right into the development is there is restricted sight of what's going on round the corner of the public house, and certainly if you're driving a refuse vehicle, it's going to be very, very difficult. And you've got people coming out of the pub and going across the car park, and it's going to be, sort of. I think Highways should reconsider, sort of what. They've approved it, but certainly when I stood in the middle of the road, fortunately I didn't get run over. I thought the visibility was not very good at all. Coming the other way, it seemed okay, but certainly turning right into the development was quite difficult, really. So I mean, there's many different reasons why this development shouldn't go ahead. Also, the education contributions, as we've heard, they're not going to contribute to secondary education. Contributions aren't going to be spent in the village, and we're not too sure whether or not the primary would be. So there are quite a few concerns on this, and we've got the other application to come for the access road. I mean, if we approve this, well then it would be difficult not to approve the access road. Although I think that we should bear in mind that there is actually a fire exit on the side of the pub, which goes directly onto the access road. So that's another reason to be concerned about the application. I think it would have been better if the access road had been moved further away from the pub, which would have been much safer for the people exiting it. Thanks, Chair.
Do you want to answer those points?
Yeah, in terms of the 2011 census, that is sadly the most up-to-date information. I know it's come out in 2021, but that only includes general information about age, race. It doesn't go into the granular detail yet of this figure. So I think we've got
in terms of the census data, I think the census itself took place towards the end of 2021, and the ONS seek to release the information within two years of that, but it gets very much released on a kind of
First of March,
phased basis, so it's kind of in groupings. So I don't think it's kind of necessarily honed into that kind of level of information as yet.
In terms of drainage data, I'll sort of go through that at paragraph 8.6.4 of the committee report. Originally, we did request drainage information up to the end of April 2023, but we reviewed the position after they provided the winter drainage results and the predictions for what would happen between the end of January and April. And we are satisfied that there's enough room between the highest groundwater level and the tank so that this is a feasible drainage solution based on all the data that we have had quite a lot of data from them. They have done 2 boreholes, installed 2 boreholes and monitored that over a period up till January 2023. And we did have quite a bit of rain in the winter as well this year, as long as it's been dry at the end of last year. There isn't a secondary school in Edgmond. There is the primary school, but the secondary school will be likely Newport, and that's where it will be spent. In terms of fire exit, obviously it would then, you've got the pavement proposed adjacent to the public house now, so it would presumably open up to that. The visibility at the display, as some of us saw today, is poor. They are proposing to remove the boundary wall further north to improve the visibility, and the boundary wall further south is currently being constructed or reconstructed because and moved in position because of the visibility. So we are satisfied that the visibility display proposed is acceptable, and it's certainly a betterment on what it is currently. And the location of the access is because of the best visibility possible, I suppose, the optimum location, because if you move it further north, you do get issues with existing garden boundaries, which obscure that visibility.
Amric?
Thank you. I'm a bit concerned about using the good agricultural land, but as it's not in use at the moment, so I can mitigate that. There's a great need for the affordable housing, and the money spent on the open spaces, the education, and improvement to the highways. Nothing but a good thing to do, and with all the improvements coming around here, there's a good chance that the pub will open again, because it's not shut, it's closed at the moment. So I think it's a good move.
Thank you, Amric. Any further comments?
The Census 2021 population data was released on the 28th of June 2022. Okay.
Anyway, I think we had a fair debate on this one, and questions and concerns. Can you confirm to me that I didn't see any trees on the site this morning?
So there's lots of in terms of trees, there are some trees mainly around the boundary, the hedge or the group of trees further east, the furthest point away from the site. Most of that is being retained. There are groups of trees that are being removed. I think it's 7 groups, but they're all category C trees. So they're generally fairly low on because category A is the best. And yeah, we have secured a condition to in relation to tree replanting.
So you secured tree replanting. Okay. Somebody move the recommendation?
I'll move for that.
The seconder? All those in favour of the recommendation, please show. Those against? One abstention.
2 abstentions.
2 abstentions. So that is.
Can we retake that? I'm not. Please.
Solicitor needs to make certain.
Yeah.
All those in favour of the recommendation, please show.
So we've got 4 for.
Those against?
2 and 2 abstentions.
2 abstentions.
Fine. Yeah, that's carried.
That's carried. So that development's allowed. Right. We now come to item 6A, which is 2021-1208, and this is to be moved by you again, Robin?
Yep. So this is a full planning application for the extension of the car park and associated access at the Lion Inn Public House. This is because the existing car park is being proposed to be lost because of the access that goes through to the rear of the site. So they are linked in that respect, but they are separate planning applications. It's the officer recommendation that the application be granted full planning permission.
Thank you. Stephen, your turn again, Stephen.
Far less of a speech this time and more some general thoughts. First off, to say that clearly this the nature of the application is sort of presenting somewhat of a fait accompli. It's very difficult to refuse this in light of the previous sort of consent. Very, very difficult. But there are a few comments that I would like to make, though, Chair. First off would be to mourn the loss of what was without doubt one of the finest beer gardens in the county. Many years have I spent nice summers afternoon in a beer garden, staring across to the rolling hill of the deer park, and I will mourn its loss very greatly, as will a number of residents. Not that I appreciate that is a planning concern, Chair. The second comment centres on the highways and the sheer number of hoops that needs to be jumped through in terms of mitigations to satisfy the concerns raised by highways, and I do applaud highways for all that work, but I would just like to confirm, because I see that the recommendation is to approve the delegation to the development manager, and I would very much like to see a firm condition there, or at least through delegated powers, it may be made completely clear to the developer that the necessary changes to the highways must be completed prior to sale or occupation of the site. Too many times I've seen very good looking highway schemes that have not been delivered prior to sale or occupation of the homes, and it's just not good enough. Secondarily, on highways, the vehicle activated sign, we need to know who is responsible for the maintenance and operation of that, and what accountability the local planning authority and highways will place on whoever owns it to make sure that it works, because there's vanishingly little detail around that in the application. And just finally, if I could, Chair, through the number of new developments in my patch in the last 10 years, the village of Hibberton has doubled in size in that time, but not one of the new roads has been adopted by the local authority, which I do believe is pretty disgraceful. And I would really like to see some firm commitment by the local authority to ensure the adoption of this route in years yet to come. Thank you very much indeed, Chair.
Thanks, Stephen. Alan Wilson, please.
To raise, Chair, and it's reiteration of what Steve has just put forward to the panel. One is the adoption of the vehicle activated sign that's proposed at the crossroads within the village next to the development, because it is a crossroads at that point with Newport Road, with Shrewsbury Road, across the High Street with Chetwynd Road. It's the question of ownership and stroke on costs and maintenance. How is that going to be picked up? Because I know these things have to be paid for, and equally insurance of the said item too. And then on top of that, my background was in traffic management, and I do wish to express concerns about the point of visibility from that point. Construction is underway, and I can confirm to the panel that construction is underway of the new wall that will afford a view that would afford a reasonably safe egress from that service road. I'd like to thank the developers for putting in the footpaths that they proposed to put there, because it will make, as this Veronica mentioned earlier on, a safer route to school for our future residents. So thank you very much for your time.
I've got this right now. Adam White. You've got 3 minutes out, Adam, if you need it.
Thank you. Firstly, I'd just like to address again some of the concerns raised in respect to the line-in and the future intentions for it. It's always been the intention to retain the pub, as we recognise the importance of this community asset. So the extensive works undertaken to date to improve the pub are testament to that. I'm also pleased to inform you that an operator has signed a lease on the pub, and it will again open shortly. So this application proposes an extension to the existing car park area and alterations to the existing access arrangements only. The application previously included alterations to the pub, however those works have since been approved under a separate application. We welcome the officer recommendation to permit this application subject to a Section 106 agreement. It represents the culmination of extensive dialogue with officers and Highways Authority who have no objections to the application on highway grounds. So it's important to stress that there is an existing access in this location, as you're aware, and the proposed alterations will improve visibility. The boundary wall to the southwest has already been removed to facilitate this, as well as providing a 2-metre footway across the site frontage for pedestrians. Officers agreed that this would result in betterment from the current position. It's also important to stress that the existing access has operated historically without any recorded highway safety issues. In addition, off-site mitigation is also proposed, which has been set out already. So this includes drop curb tactile pedestrian crossing point to the north of the site to allow pedestrians to cross the road at a safe location. And this also has the added benefit of helping to reduce vehicle speeds generally in the vicinity. And a vehicle activated sign is also proposed. Again, this will assist in reducing vehicle speeds, and this will be secured through a legal agreement. So in assessing the highway impacts, the framework at paragraph 111 clearly states that development should only be prevented or refused on highway grounds if there would be an unacceptable impact on highway safety, or the residual cumulative impact on the road network would be severe. That is a very high test. Whilst there's been some debate as to the extent of the visibility space required, even on the Highway Authority figures subject to the mitigation proposed, they've concluded there would not be an unacceptable impact on highway safety. And that conclusion also fully recognises the intended use of the access. The site will therefore be served by safe and suitable access, and the residual cumulative impact on the road network would not be severe. As such, there can be no justified objection on these grounds. As set out in the committee report, no concerns have been raised on design and amenity grounds, and there would be no harmful impacts on designated and undesignated heritage assets. There have been no concerns raised in respect of ecology, and the existing trees in the pub garden will be unaffected. We therefore respectfully ask members to support the officer recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. Back to you, Robin.
Thank you, Chair. So the Lion Inn public house is an asset of community value and is protected by policy COM 1 of the development plan and Edgmond neighbourhood plan. So the proposal will result in some loss of the pub garden, which is currently located to the rear of the public house, and then sort of wraps around the existing car park in an L shape. However, officers consider that the remaining pub garden to the rear of the public house is still quite significant in size to serve the public house, and as such we think policy COM 1 is satisfied. Unfortunately, views from the pub garden itself are not a material consideration in planning terms. So the proposal will provide the access into the site, and then will reconfigure the existing car park and provide an area for 27 marked car parking spaces. At the moment the car park isn't marked, as well as space for motorcycles and bicycles as well. So the internal estate road would sever the public house from the car park, but the developer is proposing the footpaths either side of the either side in terms of the public house side and the car park side, to serve people using both areas. The legal agreement proposes to retain the car park with the public house in perpetuity, and the off-site mitigation works would also be secured by a Section 106 agreement. It's also proposed that the works to the car park take place prior to the development at the rear to ensure that the car park associated with the public house is not prejudiced, because it is being the current one is being lost. In terms of the vehicle activated sign, that would be secured via a Section 278 agreement with the Highway Authority, and its management would fall with the council given its location on the adopted highway. The road itself into the site has been designed to adoptable highway standard, so the local authority would adopt it if it was put forward. And adoption is a priority for the local highway authority. We acknowledge that. So I think that's everything covered. So officers conclude that the proposal is compliant with the local plan and the neighbourhood plan, and the recommendation is for approval, subject to that Section 106 agreement and the conditions.
Thank you, Robin. Open to debate. Peter.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I was conflicted by this one completely, because I don't think I agree with Councillor Dugmore. I think it's the wrong development in the wrong place, and I also wasn't convinced about the loss of the agricultural land. But we are where we are now. It has been passed, and I think there's really very little discussion to be made, because there's no other way in or out of this. We are where we are with that. By losing the car park space there, we've got to then put some more in to go alongside to make it a viable car park to go with what will hopefully be a viable pub. So I just think we have no choice, quite honestly, now to say yes to this.
Anybody else? Nigel?
Yeah. We are where we are, and I totally agree. You know, sort of, there's got to be an access to this development. 2 points. Well, coming back to the fire exit out of the pub. I mean, you know, sort of, can't there be any sort of traffic calming measures or something when approaching from the south? Because, as I say, it's a bit of a blind corner when you're approaching from the south, and if you've got people, you know, God forbid if there was a fire or anything, would be quite easy for people to get run over if they're coming out of, if they're piling out of the fire exit. The other thing is that actually the report doesn't state what the highway's contribution is going to be. Normally we have a value put on that, and so it's not clear as to what the highway contribution is going to be.
I suppose when we see highway contributions within officer reports, often they're contributions to the strategic highway network. In this case, it's off-site work that would be secured via the Section 278 agreement, and we don't usually put those costs in.
Okay.
Yes, I've got a couple of concerns still. It is the highways. It's also the loss of some of the beer garden. The fact that the road is so near to the beer garden, which adds pollution to people who are sitting there drinking because of cars coming in and out up through to the houses. The fact that you've got a white line outside the display area on the road where they shouldn't park. Well, you should have a sign saying no parking. Children will be with their parents on that beer garden. More use will be made of the beer garden because of the 24 houses with, it says in the planning application they look at 3 to 4 use. That's 3 bedrooms to 4 persons. It was 3B and 4 persons. So I believe that will generate even more people wanting to use the garden on the best nights of the year. And also you've got cyclists coming in, pedestrians from the residents coming in, motorcycles and 27 car spaces, but they won't be all coming in at the same time. They'll be coming and going all the time, so it'll add to more traffic converging on the road, off the road into the premises, and then off the road. So there should be even more information for being careful for drivers and careful to the persons using the area as well. I'm really concerned. And it's a lovely pub. I mean, I didn't go there on the site visit now, but I've been there in the past. And it's just, sad that it's going to lose part of the original heritage. But as you're saying, I said it was landlocked and only one access in and out, and you all know where we are.
I mean, yes, the public house itself isn't part of this planning application. The pub garden is. I think I've addressed the pub garden aspect. The existing pub garden is right next to the car park as existing, so we do have to consider the existing site context as well. I'm not sure if there's anything else to... I mean, yeah, again, in terms of the highways, you've got the footway both sides, so it's certainly... there's areas for pedestrians, separate areas for pedestrians proposed as part of this proposal. Obviously, they will have to cross from the car park, but yeah, we don't envisage that to be a significant impact in terms of that conflict with pedestrian and cars.
Okay, any further debate? No? Peter, did you want to move the...
I didn't, but I will.
I'll second it.
Moved and seconded the recommendation. All those in favour of the recommendation, please show. Unanimous. Unanimous. That is passed. Thank you for that.